Hey, good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Steve Winston, and I am the Managing Director of the National Jewish Assembly. For those of you who join our Zoom events regularly, you'll know that Gary usually chairs the events, and Gary unfortunately is feeling a little bit under the weather, so I'm standing in for him. Um, so welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us for this evening's Zoom event, which, as you all know, is a slight departure from our usual stream of Zoom events, which focus more on politics and Israel and Israel here in the UK. So this evening's event is focusing on bringing kosher to every table, and it will be presented by our very own advisory board member, Rabbi David Neifeld. So before I introduce Rabbi David Neifeld properly, I just want to mention a few house rules. If you could all please keep yourselves muted. And toward the end of the event, once Rabbi David has presented all he wants to about the Sephardi Kashrut board, we will invite everyone to ask questions. And so if you do want to ask a question, please just raise your virtual hand within the Zoom functionality, and we will then invite you to put your questions directly to Rabbi David. I think that's basically it for the house rules. So let's get on to introducing Rabbi David Neifeld to you all. As I just mentioned, Rabbi David Neifeld is an advisory board member of the National Jewish Assembly, and he is a director for a well-known organization within the UK Jewish community. He has held several positions in the Jewish community, most notably in the field of kosher certification. He has also led several trips to Israel and Poland. As my reference to him as Rabbi David suggests, David is an ordained rabbi. He holds a degree in politics and media studies. He is a passionate religious Zionist and a staunch defender of Israel. He's an active member of the Conservative Party and has previously stood as a candidate for office at local level. So without further ado, Rabbi David, I'm going to hand over to you, where you will present this evening's Zoom event, which is focusing on bringing kosher to every table. Over to you, Rabbi David.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for that welcome, and thank you everyone for joining. It's a real pleasure to be here, and it's a great pleasure outside of my professional role to be an advisory board member of the NJA, and it really has brought a huge amount to the Jewish community. And um, of course, one of the main pillars of the NJA is about Jewish life, and there's can be nothing more. That defines the Jewish people than Kashrut for over 4,000 years. For the 4,000 years history of the Jewish people, it has been Kashrut that has been one of the key features that has kept us together as a people. And it is a signal that Judaism is not just in the synagogue, it's not just in key, well-known traditional practices that people know about, but it's about everyday life, right down to the mundane, the seemingly mundane action of eating and drinking. That everything that we do is about serving Hashem and about the laws that have been given to us in the Torah. Now, the Ramban says that uh, there are many things that we can eat that we can't that we can't eat, but there's certain things, for example, like birds and birds of prey that we cannot eat, and a big idea behind it is because we don't want to consume the negative characteristics of birds of prey. We want that what we consume, what we eat, becomes a part of who we are as individuals. And just as there are many items that are not good for the body, in terms of medicine or in terms of what you eat, um, so too with spiritual health. It is important what you eat. Now, uh, there are many, there are different aspects of the Torah, different laws that we learn about. Chukim, which are laws which are we don't actually necessarily fully understand why we're doing it. Kashrut is a good example. There are many reasons that are given. Spiritual, as I said, spiritual health. There's actual health. There plenty of rabbis have spoken over the years about the humane treatment of animals, and it's something obviously that is something as the NJA will, as part of a role in lobbying for Shechita, we'll talk about the humane treatment of animals. Um, there's also the unification aspect, which I've alluded to already. But uh, the, the main thing about kashrut is that we are told to do it. Chukim are laws that are beyond necessarily the immediate, what we would call, rational laws. Um, and uh, and we just are commanded to do it, and we expected to do it. Then you've got laws, mishpatim. We've got laws that basically make sense. You've got laws that we would normally keep. Do not kill. Be honest in business. These are things that are extremely important, but we can rationalize them as human beings. We can understand why these are things that we should do. And then there's other parts, other laws regarding Eidut, laws about that we are regarding things that we have witnessed as a people. For example, on Pesach, we need to have matzah because we've gone through the Pesach experience, and we have to commemorate that every year. Purim, which is coming up, we have to read the Megillah every year to remember the miracles of Purim. But when it comes to things like kashrut, or things like kashrut are things that we wouldn't necessarily, as a just a general human being walking down the street would think, oh, we've got to not mix meat and milk, and we've got to wait a certain amount of time after meat, and we can only have certain certified products. So um, we fall as kashrut, the idea of kashrut falls into that segment of chukim. Um, but yes, there have been many things over the years, and there are many very good reasons to keep kosher. And in fact, if you look at some recent studies in America, uh, there are plenty of people who don't keep kosher at all, who actually are very strict about only eating kosher items, not because of that, when they keep kosher, not because of religious reasons, but because of reasons relating to food hygiene and regular inspections that are done by the bodies. But we'll leave that aside. I like to look firstly at what is kosher, just a basic understanding of what is kosher, and then we'll look at some of the key categories of kosher, and then I will also explain about how the work that we do at the SKA and how that all fits into it. So obviously kosher means fit or proper according to Jewish practice, and the laws are biblical in origin and have been interpreted over the years by the rabbis, and they are interpreted by rabbinic authorities and are set out clearly in the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. And through these use of these rabbinical texts, the rabbis are able to apply modern day situations based on the apply Torah law to modern day situations. Now we've got key concepts in kashrut. That's obviously there's meat, which includes the meat or bones of mammals or fowl, or anything that includes these items. These are classified as meat items. We have dairy items, which are classified as coming from a kosher animal, or milk needs to come from a kosher animal, whether that's cream or butter or cheese, etc. There's parov foods, which are neither meat nor milk. And these are things such as eggs or vegetables or grains. And these two parov may be these neutral items may be eaten with meat or with milk. Now, there's a concept that we must not mix meat and milk. That is a very important concept. Now, we're told 3 times in the Torah that we must not mix meat. We should not cook a kid in its mother's milk. And from that, we have extrapolated that we must have 3 prohibitions when it comes to mixing meat and milk. We can't eat it together, we can't cook it together, and we can't derive benefit from meat and milk. So these are 3 prohibitions. 3 times we're told in the Torah not to cook a kid in its mother's milk, and those are the 3 big categories regarding mixing meat and milk that we extrapolate from it. And then there's a whole other category of vegetables, and within vegetables, within these power of items, vegetables, we have insects, which are often prevalent in vegetables, and we are told very clearly in the Torah that we have to avoid eating swarming things. So insects, basically, apart from a few different types of locusts, very like there's which only a few people really know about. And there are certain rabbis who go down their track and do a whole locust seder, and they kind of bring out the kosher uh, things, and they make a whole spiel about it. But really, in general, insects are a big no-no, and in fact are considered to even be a even greater prohibition than eating pig or something like that, because of the amount of times that it is mentioned in the Torah, and there's a biblical requirement not to have these insects. So meat, dairy, and pareve. These are the sections. You've got vegetables, which have their own complexities with the infestations. Now, at the SKA, um, we have a few different aspects of our operation, uh, just like any other kosher organizations, and I'll be very diplomatic and say that we're very blessed in the UK to have plenty of very reliable kosher organizations. But the SKA, obviously, I'm here to represent the SKA, and I can tell you a bit about our operation. We have kosher certification, so that these are items which um, are certified by the Sephardi Kashrut Authority, by the SKA. For example, a good example is McCain fries or King's Mill bread. You go into the shop, into the supermarket, you see the SKA logo. Those items are certified by the Sephardi Kashrut Authority, and we have a contractual relationship with these companies in order to have regular audits of their plants. And we have, every time a new ingredient is added or taken away, or if any change, no matter how minor it is, we are aware and contractually required to have been made aware of by the company. So we got kosher certification, and then within that kind of realm, we have kosher approvals, which is another aspect where won't necessarily um, we won't necessarily give a certification, but through our own research and our understanding of the kosher system and food processing systems, we are able to make a judgment about whether an item is kosher suitable rather than kosher certified. So that is one aspect of it. We've also got um, establishments and caterers which fall under our supervision. So on a weekly basis, we have many functions going on by caterers that are under the auspices of the Sephardi Kashrut Authority, and we also have restaurants as well, which are under our license. Uh, and as a body, as a Sephardi Kashrut Authority, we are under the auspices of the Sephardi Beth Din. So I regularly meet with the Dayanim of the Sephardi Beth Din, and we have Dayan Yossi David, who is the Rosh Vada Kashrut. He is the religious authority that I consult with regards to, in addition to the Beth Din, with regards to any matters that I need support with. Um, so within a little bit about kosher certification, and I'll speak a little bit more about the catering and restaurant side as well. Um, We have a new website, which have been very proud to release in the last few weeks, called ska.org.uk. And on that's the website, ska.org.uk. And within that, we've got a brand new feature of a product search where people are able to search the items that we have certified or approved, and that is regularly updated. And there are other search engines out there for other kashrut authorities, but this is specifically relating to the SKA products. Now, with regards to kosher certification, it is like any other certification. I go into plenty of factories, and we are on the list of certifications that people want to get. You've got your vegan certification, you've got your gluten-free certification, you've got your your dairy-free certifications. Uh, there are so many certifications out there, and kosher is one of them. And uh, there are strict standards that we put in place with every single company to make sure that we are fully on top of everything and that they run everything by us in the appropriate manner. Now, we have a full ingredients list and we grade each ingredient according to their sensitivity. Now, generally, within the kosher world, there are three groupings that the kosher organizations will use to determine the sensitivity of a product. You have a group one product. Now, this is the least sensitive item. This is something like water or sugar or flour. These are very basic items which aren't very sensitive when it comes to a kosher standpoint. So this is a group one. We don't necessarily need to see a specific kosher certificate, and much paperwork to be able to verify that water is water. Then you've got group two, which are items which are kosher compatible, but they need to have approval. So these are often acids and powders, they may be vegetable based, they may be of vegetable origin, they may be plant based, but we need to be able to trace them. So that's a group two. And then you've got group three. Now, these are items which are very high kosher sensitivity, items that may have a meat origin, an animal origin, may come from an animal derivative. Now, these are, items such as glycerin or things like this. Now, these items are considered to be group three and absolutely must have a kosher certificate, and we must be able to trace it through the certification channels. So that we go through each ingredient, we grade them according to sensitivity, and based on what it is, then we will need the sufficient paperwork in order to prove that that item is kosher. And we are in regular contact with kosher organizations around the world to make sure that we can get all the information that we need. Now, that kind of feeds into our work that we do for the community in the approval side, which we, obviously on the certification side, a we have a relationship with the company. There is a fee that is involved in that, and we provide a service. The approval side is we don't make money from. We are doing this simply as a community service in order to help make kashrut more accessible. But based on our understanding of the way the factories work and our ability um, to grade ingredients in terms of sensitivity, we are able to make certain judgments. So these three groupings are the kind of overarching groupings of each ingredient we do. Now, every factory is different, but there's certain things that we need to do to make sure that there's no cross-contamination with anything that's not kosher. For example, we may be in a factory where there's meat produced on one side of the factory, and we need to make sure that there's a clear segregation between the meat side of the factory and the kosher side of the factory, effectively. And now that comes to anything from shared production lines through to shared pipings, like shared steam. So, even steam that comes from the non-kosher side that goes from one pipe into another pipe and it mixes up, that can cause a problem from a kosher perspective. So there's lots of complicated aspects to koshering a factory. But generally, we'll need to make sure that the equipment is koshered, or koshered, and that can be done. That generally is done in a certain way where heat is applied at the same level or above, the same temperature or above of what was on there in a previous cycle. So, for example, if there was a non-kosher item on a line at a certain temperature, we have to make sure that we kosher at a much higher temperature than that to absorb, to take it away. These are complicated concepts, but I'd be very happy to answer them. And then there's the other ways of koshering, in terms of sanitizing and running bitter chemicals through it. There are various different ways of doing it, and kosher and halacha is a very broad work, and there are many different ways of doing this. Um, there are also things such as special productions. So Pesach productions, which is very prevalent, this is very important for what's about to come soon with Pesach. Special Pesach productions, special batch productions for breads that there's the general breads that we certify in the supermarkets, but there's certain people who have special requirements that it should always be turned on by a Jew or not. So there's various different um, segments within the bread. I'll say a little bit about that. You may see the King's Mill breads, for example, that are on on the shelves in the stores. These are what we call pat palta bread. Now, pat palta and pat Israel, there's an idea that it goes right through a lot of things in kashrut that a Jew should start the process. A Jew should be cooking for another Jew, and people don't understand why we're doing that. There's certain things that are done in order to encourage togetherness as a Jewish people, the unity as a Jewish people, not to spread ourselves too much uh, to different um, to different sectors in society. Um, but there are certain aspects within halacha that allow um, commercial foods, it's like, for example, bread, to be made by a commercial baker, as long as all the ingredients are kosher. And this is something that we do. We work with Kingsmill and with Sunbless and various other bread baking companies to ensure that there is kosher bread that is on a commercial level kosher for the community. And this was something that was actually started off in the SKA. It's now become quite widespread amongst the different kosher organizations that they certify bread. But bread wasn't very simple to get hold of in the Jewish community, and it wasn't until the Birmingham Jewish community wanted to have the students wanted to have access to kosher bread, and they reached out to the SKA, and the SKA offered their services free to the uh, to the uh, to the bread companies. It's no longer free now, but it was free at the time just to get kosher bread to the community in Birmingham for the students in Birmingham, and that's now spread across. Anyway, I'm getting a bit sidetracked on these items, but I'd love to talk about it more. Now, a final aspect of what I'll talk about in terms of certification is on the Pesach side. We've got the Pesach list that is coming out very soon. And we in the SKA have taken great care to produce and approve items for Pesach that you may be able to find in your regular stores. And these are things such as coffee um, or dairy-free milks or honey or various other things like tinned fish, vegetables, salt and pepper, spices, oil, things that maybe you aren't in the center of Golders Green or Hendon, and you may not be able to find these items very easily. Over Pesach, we've gone to great lengths to try and make kashrut as accessible as possible through the Pesach list, and this is something that we will be releasing just after Purim this year. But I'll be very happy to answer questions on that. And I'll just cover a few other things about restaurants and catering. We work very closely with our restaurants and caterers to make sure that they are provided for The kosher supervision is provided for at the top level. We have shomrim who are trained by the Sephardi Kashrut Authority with our policies to make sure that all the food in our restaurants and our caterers is at the highest possible standard. And I'd be very happy to answer questions on these. I'm wary that I'm running out of time, so I'd like to open the floor to questions because I think that would be more helpful than me just talking. So, Steve, if you could,
Okay, well,
open.
Rabbi David, you've covered some of the the very pertinent
Yeah,
issues about kashrut and shed some light on
yeah,
what's involved. I'm seeing some of the audience have already got their hands up.
yeah,
Before we open up to the floor, I'm just going to take advantage of me being involved in this evening's one, and I ask my own question to you.
yeah.
So, I mean, it certainly seems that the Sephardi Kashrut Authority is somewhat more lenient than the KLBD, and you approve many more items. But
Hmm.
surely, at the end of the day, kosher is kosher. What are your thoughts and comments on
Well, thank you, Steve.
that?
So, kosher is kosher. You're right. Kosher is kosher. And I'll be very diplomatic. I'll be very diplomatic about the way that I say these things. Um, there's halacha, which is very straight. It's not straightforward. It's very complicated. There's stringencies and leniencies within halacha, and both the stringencies and the leniencies are equally valid as a response to halacha. So when it comes to something like certification, we will go for the more strict opinion because if someone is buying something with a certification, people are expecting that it will be at the highest possible level. Certification needs to mean something. Approvals, which I've talked about before, which we don't make financial benefit of. Um, Approvals are community service. Now, this whole difference of certification and approval doesn't exist in America and Israel, where everything either there's much more black and white, either has a hechsher or doesn't have a hechsher. But in
Yeah.
a country like the UK or in many other smaller countries around the world, it's not the infrastructure is not there, and we need to make good of what we've got, and we need to be able to within halacha apply certain leniencies in order to make sure that we can get kosher food to be accessible for the community. Now, just because we are following a leniency on a certain thing does not mean that it's less of a halachically acceptable opinion to take. As I said, there's stringencies and leniencies, and both of them are equally valid within within halachic procedure. And the important thing of a beth din or of a kashrut authority is to be able to know when to use the stringency and to know when to use the leniency. So we always say with an approval, it's always better. It's always you can't go wrong with buying with a hechsher. If you've got something on the shelf and one item has a hechsher and the other one doesn't, I would always advise it's always best to go and buy with the stamp on it because there can never ever be any question. There's a clear certification. But there's certain items which, um, firstly, with regards to regulations that are prevalent in the UK and the EU and other major, developed civilized countries, um, there's certain laws regarding declarations that need to be made, and then so with that, and then also there is a halakhic idea that if a professional is going to substantially lose money out of not telling the truth, that itself is a halachic concept that we can rely on. And then on top of that, there are questions which I will ask every company about their processes in terms of hygiene and washing and how they prevent cross-contamination, which will make it very clear according to general regulations and kosher regulations, whether it is possible to maintain that this item is kosher suitable. You have this also in other certifications. You got vegan certification and you got vegan suitable. And that's a good example that basically just a vegan certification will always be stronger than a vegan suitability. It's the same with the kosher certification and kosher suitability, kosher approvals, and that is something that we'll always stress. But you're right in the sense that uh, we are approving a lot of products, and we're very happy and proud about doing that because we are trying to make kashrut as accessible as possible to the
Absolutely.
community.
100%.
And we come under fire from certain aspects, certain sectors within the Jewish community for our willingness to go out and beyond to get food accessible to people, but it's something that we're very passionate about, and that's why we've made our tagline "Bring kosher to every table,"
Yeah.
because we want to ensure that people can eat kosher. It's something that is really important to Jewish life and to the Jewish future. So that is something that we work on every day. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to open up to our audience and Sharon Abramson. Are you able to turn on your video, Sharon?
No, I'm not, because unfortunately I'm
Okay.
not well, so I'm in bed. Sorry.
Okay, no worries,
Yeah,
no
so I
worries.
just
So
hope I
feel
don't
free
get
to
a
ask.
coughing attack.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
My
Makes it
question
better.
is about the slaughterhouse. I was told many years ago that in the kosher slaughterhouse, one animal never sees another animal being slaughtered. It's to like save it, have it feeling stressed. I'm sure they smell the smell and they probably know what's going on, but it's sort of better than actually seeing it. Whereas in non-kosher slaughterhouses, they're in a queue and they just one after the other, they see the animal in front of them, what's happening. Is this true about the kosher slaughterhouse?
Um, so I'm a bit reluctant to answer questions about the meat side because this is not something that I deal with on a daily. But the Sephardi Kashrut Authority is a part of the London Board of Shechita because we are the Spanish and Portuguese, and the London Beth Din both have seats on the London Board of Shechita. So but we don't get involved in that operationally. So I'm not meat is not my specialism when it comes to the slaughtering. I do understand what you're saying, and that is something that I am aware of, but I don't really want to give I don't want to really be an authority on the meat side because it's not something I'm involved with on a day-to-day basis.
Okay,
Sorry.
thanks for being open and honest.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sharon. Wish you better.
Thank you.
Dalia.
Yes, I have a question. Recently, we've been told not to buy honey from regular supermarkets.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why when it's always been okay to use. How does the SKA stand on that?
Oh, good question. So yes, it has been the policy up until a few months ago that all honey, the general policy from the London Bethden and other and us that all honey is acceptable. Now the honey is a bit complicated because there needs to be certain types of there are certain types of honeys which are problematic about how the honey about how the bee transports the honey and how the bee excretes the honey, the pollen. Um, but generally the assumption has been that honey is acceptable. Now, it's a halakhic debate about these different forms of um, the process of the extraction of the pollen and the process of honey manufacturing. There is a halakhic debate, a genuine halakhic debate about the difference between forest honey and the regular honeydew. There's the honeydew honey, forest honey, and the regular honey that you would find on the stores. Um, we are saying that it is a disagreement between rabbinic authorities, and you can make your choice. Basically, this is either the SKA position is that it is preferable to buy only with a hechsher, just like it is with anything, but it is not clear cut. It's not black and white that the honey you are purchasing is not acceptable. And therefore, while we recommend with a hechsher, there are, if the Sephardi Kashrut Authority, in my sense, from my standpoint, can get information about certain honeys, then we can say for sure that it's okay. But basically, our point is it's always better to buy with a hechsher. We will be on the Pesach list. You'll see we'll be coming out with our policy on honey, but we'll be basically saying that it's a debate between different authorities in halacha, and we would encourage you to buy with a hechsher if you can, but if you can't, then there is enough to rely on buying the regular honey. So we're not going to go as far as some other authorities have on that perspective. I hope that answers it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keith, would you like to? Okay, you've unmuted yourself.
Yes, hello. I have two slightly different questions, if I may. The first is one item that you haven't yet touched on, which is kosher wine. It's not so much the wine itself that makes me, because I can understand the rules about that, but I know that the rules about wine were made much later on, and a lot of the reasoning for that was so that wine was supervised so that we could be sure that it hadn't been used as to worship pagan gods, etc. And that is a lot of the ruling behind wine. That's as I understand it, which is fine. But what I don't understand is how that got extrapolated to anything containing grape juice is suddenly treif. And I read a lot of these things and it says you can't have that yogurt because it's got a splash of grape juice in it. You can't have that fruit mix because it's got a splash of, and yet no way is that wine. And it certainly in modern production methods hasn't been used in any sort of pagan worship. And I don't know how that got extrapolated. And I wonder if you could explain that. And my second question, which is probably even more off the scale, and my son who's there is going to groan at me because he's heard me ask this question many times, and I've still not had.
He's got his hand up.
And I've still not ever had a satisfactory answer from anybody. So I'm really hoping you can help me on this one. And that is to do with cheese, because I understand that generations ago, an exception was made to allow a meat product from a kosher animal to be deliberately mixed with milk in large quantities in order to actually change the substance of cheese. So it goes against all of the mixtures of putting meat and milk products together. And this exception of putting animal rennet in cheese was done so that, I presume, so that we could be allowed to eat cheese. But a lot of kosher cheeses, particularly in this country, are now made with vegetarian rennet. And yet, nobody seems able in the kashrus world to reverse a decision that was made generations ago and say, hey, we no longer need this exception. Therefore, we will make any cheese, whether made with kosher rennet or treif rennet, not allowed, because you could all use kosher vegetarian rennet, which would negate the need for having this exception. And I wonder if you could tell me how it would be possible for the kosher world to actually come together and make that change.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So firstly,
right. You didn't expect an easy ride from me.
No. That's good. So firstly, with regards to the wine, that's a very good point. It's a very good question. So that you're right. It's not simple. And there's that kind of processed grape juice is not going to be used. This probably necessary for pagan purposes. But basically, there's a concept of stam yainam and then yain nesech. So these are different classifications within wine. So something that is definitely used for those kind of pagan and religious purposes that would not be accessible to us. That is yain nesech, and that's that one section is stam yainam, which is some, wine, basically, grape juice, which isn't. The concept has been, basically we have a situation where, according to the Torah, we have to trust the rabbis. And I know that's sometimes a bit difficult to accept, but there's certain things that have been maintained in order to make sure that the sanctity of the process can be maintained, and so that it's just sometimes it's better to make a clean policy on something rather than have to go through individual grape products and try and trace what they are possibly being used for. So I hear what you're saying. It's way above my pay grade. I'm not able to flip the whole thinking of the kashrut world on this. I understand what you're saying, but this is not something that it's important that there is certain standards that are maintained in the kashrut world in order to make sure that we are following what has been passed on to us by the rabbis, and we'll take rabbis with a much bigger cup than me in order to necessarily to deal with that grape issue. With regards to the issue of the cheese, so we're talking about the rennet. So, oh, do you want to just repeat the question about the cheese? So I've got a question in my
Well,
mind.
my point is that because an exception was made generations ago to allow us to put a meat product in with milk in order to allow us to eat cheese, now that is no longer necessary. Why can't the kosher world come together and reverse that exception so that all cheese or kosher cheese would from now on be made with vegetarian rennet?
Yeah, so it's a good point. I actually had a question today about vegetarian rennet, so it's a very it is something that comes up. So there's the whole idea of Community Israel of when that a Jew should be adding the rennet and that whole process. Now the rennet that we talking about today with the vegetarian rennet perhaps isn't as big a problem, obviously, as the meat one. But we are making strides actually with regards to certain soft cheeses. It is something that we have in the Sephardi Kashrut Authority. We have actually been trying to deal with. We gave an approval for the Philadelphia soft cheese. We gave an approval recently for the Longley Farm cream cheese and the Longley Farm cottage cheese. And this is something that we are making our way through the process to try and resolve, especially from the soft cheese standpoint, because there is a question about cheeses that, first of all, these cheeses don't have rennet, so that also makes it a lot easier to deal with from a halakhic standpoint. But we have to. We consider anything with regards to cheese, whether it's soft cheese or not, to be more complicated, and we have to take it on a case-by-case basis and evaluate the process made from that was involved with making that cheese. So the soft cheeses we are definitely taking and kind of moving forward with. We're not really in a place right now to shift generations worth of thinking when it comes to cheese, and the same with other things. Sometimes whether or not it's correct, decisions that have been made many years ago do have ramifications on us today, because we have to trust in the rabbis that they're making the right decisions, and we have a responsibility as rabbis today to maintain the decisions that we made before us. That's not necessarily to say that we can't. Basically, today's rabbis can't just overthrow everything that previous generations have put in place. Sometimes things have different standards. So sometimes, you know, it may be an official minhag, maybe it's not an official minhag, but we have certain things in place that we can't necessarily just pick up. And I know it's not going to please everyone, but there's certain things that we can do and certain things we can't do. And right now, I'm not in a position to say that all these cheeses are okay. But we on a case-by-case basis, we are looking, especially on the soft cheeses, we're trying to make a difference and try and make kashrut more accessible by getting the soft cheeses, which don't have the rennet, which have been classed as part of the cheese family. We've been working to try and bring us more in line actually with the US standard, because if you actually look in America, plenty of cheeses, soft cheeses are certified. We haven't managed to make a dent into getting them certified here yet, but we've definitely started approving them. And I would watch that space moving forward, because there'll be more stuff, you know, hopefully coming out with that. Now, there are some people who still hold that the soft cheeses should be held in the same category as the harder cheeses, and they feel that even if it doesn't have rennet, it should still be classified as cheese. Now, so we actually have made it clear on our announcements in this matter, and also on our website and the product search, you'll see this, that we have put a classification there that this approval is only for people who hold that soft cheeses aren't in that realm of cheese. They don't need Kvinat Israel. They don't need to be under that kind of supervision. So certain people will hold that it's not cheese, the soft cheese, and some people will hold that it is. And we are trying to provide with both of those opinions in our approvals. Yeah. I'm sorry if it's a bit complicated, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I can see on your website about the Longley Farm cottage cheese, the certification there, and the certain types of Philadelphia cheese.
Yes.
All very interesting.
Yeah.
Michael Rowe, if you'd like to unmute. Yep.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Thank you for a very interesting talk. I have 3 quick questions, if that's okay. First one is, given what you've just said, how come we were allowed to readjust the thinking on Chalav Yisrael? Because obviously it was the policy you could only drink Chalav Yisrael, and that was an ordination of the rabbi, and that was able to be changed. So how come, or at least it was interpreted more flexibly given modern manufacturing? So how come that can be changed and other things can't be adapted in the same way? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is what I think a lot of people might be thinking is, how come most vegan products can't just be certified as kosher in a very simple way? You said that obviously lots of products have the vegan certification, so why can't the SKA or the KLBD or whoever just look into them and probably realize that the ingredients are non-problematic? And the third question is, we've had hula hoops and twiglets. I'd like to know what's coming next.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So, Michael, on the first one, the question of the first one was on, I should write these things down. Chalav Yisrael. So, it's a good point. So, Rav Moshe Feinstein, he was a preeminent halakhic authority in America and across world Jewry. He came out with a responsa that and a ruling that that milk, chalav stam, basically milk that is made from a kosher animal, that comes from a kosher animal and is made in a country, you know, with very, he was speaking specifically about America, but it has been applied to other jurisdictions around the world, which you know, such as the UK and the EU. So milk that can be verifiably traced as being from a kosher animal and as from a kosher source is classified as chalav stam, as plain milk, and it doesn't actually come under the classification of Chalav Yisrael or not. It basically almost has its own status, and it can be consumed because it is totally clear that it has come from a kosher source. Now, Chalav Yisrael, certain people who are very particular to only consume products that are certified as Chalav Yisrael, that they are under the supervision from the time of milking all the way through. as being from the kosher animal, and those people have taken an extra stringency upon themselves to maintain that it's been done that way. But Rav Moshe Feinstein, he put this this declaration down. He put this ruling down that basically almost declared Halav Stam to be on the same level as that, and that you can accept that this milk is almost like you're drinking Halav Yisrael, because you're able to trace through these features. Now, this doesn't apply to all jurisdictions. This, you can rely on the UK regulatory system to be able to say that cow's milk is cow's milk, for example. But there's certain jurisdictions of the world that you can't rely on. It's not a plain thing that you can always say that milk is acceptable. There's certain parts of the world that don't have a very strong regulatory system, and you wouldn't be halakhically permitted, according to this ruling, to rely on that being kosher. So there's certain people who will make sure that everything they have is Chalav Yisrael, and certain people who rely on Rav Moshe Feinstein's ruling, and we will always, when it comes to something from the Kosher Authority standpoint, whether it's us or any other authority, we'll always put there whether it's Chalav Yisrael or whether it's not, so people can make that judgment. The second question, remind me what the topic of the second
was on vegan foods.
Vegan foods. No, it's a very good point. Vegan is a long way towards something being acceptable. There are certain things that are still problematic, that we need to look at. So, for example, whether it's something like grape juice, which I know has been brought up already, we have to check whether there's grape juice in the product. So if it's a vegan product, it can still have grape in it. So that is something that needs to be looked into. And we also have to check in shared lines, because a vegan product can still be vegan, but it hasn't necessarily gone through the proper, they may share a line with something that may be problematic. So we have to make sure that there's a proper koshering process that goes between. Also, we have to check that there aren't, for example, certain fruits that are heavily infested, which are in them. So, for example, there's certain dried berries which may be very heavily infested. They may still be, that is a sensitive matter. So there are various things that, as looking at the vegan standpoint, it is definitely a huge step forward, and it does make life from the kosher certification side much easier. There are all these kind of declarations these days of vegan and dairy free and gluten free, because it really helps ensure that there's less cross contamination with items that may be problematic, and you learn these things from going into factories that if we a good example is most factories, you have to change clothing when you move from a meat side to a non-meat side, or you have to change your hair nets, and you have to change your clothing, and everything that you can imagine you need to go through. So having something certified as vegan or vegan suitable is definitely a big step in the right direction, and a lot of the products that we are approving are vegan products. When I see something as vegan, that means that it looks promising, but I can't say straight away that it's okay, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And we're trying to approve as many products as possible, and obviously the vegan products are the first step, the first port of call to get things approved. But there are a lot of people who ask questions about things like vegan restaurants and all that kind of stuff. The infestation issue is a massive issue that needs to be confronted, because, as I was mentioning earlier, the idea of having produce that is heavily infested we have, in the kosher world, we have had to master ways of cleaning produce. And in fact, one of the things that we do actually in the SKA is we certify a lot of the frozen vegetables that are on the shelves, in the fridges, and in places like Tesco and M&S. we certify suppliers of frozen vegetables, and we see the processes that are done in order to rid the vegetables of these insects, and it's really quite something. So those there are sensitivities that need to be looked at, but for sure, vegan is a good step forward. What else can I? Next question.
And what's next?
Oh, wait, there was a third question.
I think the NGA get an insight into what's next.
Oh, yes. Oh, you
Do you
know,
agree, Steve?
I think this is being recorded. Look, we're working very hard right now on the Pesach list. I can tell you that is the next big thing. I'm in full Pesach mode right now, because with Pesach coming up, we're going to celebrate Purim next week. You know, towards the end of next week, and then everyone's mind will snap into Pesach mode. So I'm full scale and making sure that we can have as many products for Pesach. That's what I'm thinking of right now. So that's the next thing. Yeah.
Okay, great
Keep your eyes on ska.org.uk and the product search. And Instagram. We've got a very active Instagram social media page. So please, keep an eye on that.
That's good. Okay, we'll put all of that in the email that we send to everyone with the recording of this evening. Simon, would you like to unmute yourself and put your question across? Thanks.
Right. Thank you, David. Very interesting talk.
Yeah.
My question is there duplication of certification with other Kashrut authorities, or do you see no need to certify something if KLBD has jumped in? And also, in following that vein, if a new product appears on the market, I mean, who you kind of race to certify it, or the company approaches one of the certification companies? How does it work?
Yeah. So the first question, Simon, was about working with, what was it about other authorities?
Duplication. Is there any duplication of certifications?
Well, look, duplication in terms of the same products being certified by both. There are certain products that that have more. You'll notice that there are plenty of products out there that have more than one kosher certification, and people wonder why that is. Well, people have their own authorities that they rely on. Sometimes they'll eat from that one, they won't eat from that one, and it's about trusting the certifications they have. So sometimes companies feel that it's best to have as many as possible. But in terms of, a good example here, I would say that we share a certification is something like the Gosh falafels. You may have seen it in the supermarkets, the Gosh falafels. Now it's got a KLBD and it's got an SKA on it. Now, a big part of the reason why there's two is because we will certify as well the falafels over Pesach, for example, because they are kitniot, and these are certain legumes that the Sephardi Kashrut people who are Sephardim, most Sephardim will eat kitniot. So we say it's kosher all year round, but we also say it's kosher for Passover for people who eat kitniot. So that there's sometimes there are reasons why they'll have more than one certification, but we different certification bodies will work together where they can, and sometimes there's other reasons why companies will want to have more than one certification. In terms of whether we're always approaching companies. I'm always approaching companies and trying to see if they would be interested in being kosher certified, and then if they're not able to be kosher certified, then I'll also look to see if if they're not willing to be kosher certified, I'll also try and find out as much about the product, so it can be possible to make a judgment about whether it can be approved rather than certified. So I'm always approaching companies, and if anyone has got any companies that they think that we should approach, I'd be very interested to hear that. And also, I'd encourage you all to approach companies yourselves and write to them and say that you would like to see this item kosher certified, because that makes our life easier. Because when we get in touch with a company, they see a salesman trying to pitch their service, but when people from the community actually get in touch with companies, it makes a difference, because you can see that there's a consumer base that may be interested in that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you. Sharon, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah. Marmite made in the UK is not kosher. How can twiglets be kosher?
So first of all, it's got a Marmite flavor, but it's not necessarily Marmite. I mean, the twiglets, if you look through the ingredient, we went through ingredient by ingredient, and we were able to, through correspondence with the company, make a declaration that was approved. But it's not Marmite. Actually, it's Marmite taste, but it's not actual. That's not the actual Marmite product.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Sharon. Does anyone else? There's no one else with their hands up at the moment. So David, I'm going to ask you what might be the last question of this evening, which was sent in. So on Passover, on Pesach, SKA also approves buying things from regular shops. And I don't mean things that are not kitniot. I've heard some people say, if I can eat in a restaurant that has a Sephardi license, then surely I can buy SKA approved products on Pesach. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Now the Sephardi Kashrut Authority, everything that we do is in accordance with halacha and kashrut laws, and it is acceptable. Okay, I'm talking about year round. It's acceptable to eat whether you are Sephardi or whether you're Ashkenazi, and there's nothing that differentiates the Sephardim and the Ashkenazi certifications. You can rely on both of them. The Sephardi is acceptable and reliable. The Ashkenazim, the other ones are also acceptable. When it comes to Pesach, that we are aware of the certain people may be aware of the certain differences when it comes to items such as kitniot, the legumes. We will make it very clear, because we realize that we're no longer just a Sephardi Kashrut Authority. Our name is Sephardi Kashrut Authority, and it was set up in the 1960s in order to serve the Sephardi community. But times have changed, and we are now recognized widely as a Kashrut Authority across both Ashkenazim and Sephardim. So on our Pesach list, we'll have a kitniot list and we'll have a non-kitniot list, and we make it very clear which items are kitniot and which items are not. Any item that is not kitniot is acceptable for Ashkenazim or Sephardim on Pesach. There's no question. It's totally acceptable. It doesn't matter whether you're Sephardi or Ashkenazi. If you're Ashkenazim, you shouldn't be eating the kitniot list, but we make it very clear on our list that is the kitniot list, and so people, that is what I'm saying. We've got a very strict standard in SKA. We are very proud of the standards that we have, and if you trust us to eat our products all year round and on Pesach, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to eat at our restaurants or anywhere else. And same with the other Hechsherim. I'll say the same thing. It's not only about the Sephardim. We've got other, as I said before, we're very blessed in this community to have other Hechsherim as well that are very well recognized. And just like you should accept their certification, you should accept ours as well. So that's basically that's what I say. I'm always happy to answer any questions, and we're very accessible. I can give my number, which my business number, Sephardi Kashrut Authority. I'm happy to answer any questions on any products that you have, and on any questions relating to anything that the SKA puts out. But that's what I would say with regards to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, we'll certainly share those details in our follow-up email to everyone who registered for this evening's event. Sunny, I can see you've got your hand up. So would you like to unmute yourself? Thanks.
Good evening. Sorry I'm a bit late.
No worries.
Just a very quick one. Alpro custard vanilla flavor used to have certification, and I've noticed it doesn't have it anymore. Can you comment on that?
I can't comment on that right now, but I can, if you can let me know about it. You've let me know about it now. I'll look into it. I'm not aware of.
Dropped from 46 to 31.
Sorry?
No, there was someone was talking in the background. So.
Okay, sorry. So, I'm always happy to look into products on an individual basis. I'm not sure of the circumstances why that one was taken off.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I can contact you about that.
Yes, please do.
Or maybe I should speak. I can speak to the company themselves.
Please do.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy for that.
Well, Sunny, we'll also share the contact details, so you can always follow up with Rabbi David.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, unless anyone else has got any questions, I think that has brought us to a natural conclusion for this evening. So before I end off, I'd just like to hand over to one of our two vice chairmen, Keith Rowe, to offer up a vote of thanks. Keith, over to you.
Thank you, Steve. And big thank you to Rabbi David Neifeld for taking the time to be with us this evening. I know you're part of the NJA, but still you've put, obviously, it's very valuable for us to have your expertise, and you've put a lot of time and effort into putting together your thoughts as to what to tell us about this evening. So thank you for all of the time and effort on that. You've given us a good history and the reasons for kashrus. You've given us a brief overview of the rules. You've gone through all of the SKA's certification, inspections, approvals, all of that process, as well as answer specific questions on various products. One of the things that I've picked up from tonight, you'll probably remember, is that you said that the Birmingham community, which of course I'm a big part of, is the community that's actually kicked off the fact that everybody can have processed bread across the country. So all of the major bread producers have jumped on that, and I'm very pleased to hear that originated here in Birmingham. So thank you for that extra bit of knowledge tonight, which is one that I shall probably bore people to death with for a long time from now on. So thank you for that. You've answered some pretty tricky questions, not the least from me. So it's really it's really good that you have. I'm sure everybody appreciates all of the effort that's gone into this evening, and you being in the hot seat. Thank you for taking the time to do this, and especially just before Pesach, being there for everybody. And just another plug for you, that if anybody wants to look up the products, then you've got a very active website at ska.org.uk, or of course you can always contact David at the SKA Direct with any specific questions. So thank you again for everything this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Rabbi David, I echo everything that Keith has said. Before we do go this evening, just to let everyone know who's still with us, that we have an in-person event in North London on Sunday evening, the 9th of March. So that's this coming Sunday. We have an evening with, excuse me, a chap from Canada, who is Canadian-Israeli. His name is Shai DeLuca, and he is brought here by the organization Camera, who monitors the media for anti-Israel bias. And he will be speaking in person at an event held by the NJA and Camera this coming Sunday evening. It's on our website, and we'll include it in the follow-up email that we send to everyone tomorrow. And we are also just putting the finishing touches on an event, again, an in-person event that will also be in North London on April the 1st. That will be the evening of April the 1st. And that features Anne Hertzberg from the NGO Monitor, the organization that, as its name suggests, monitors or other NGOs for anti-Israel activity. And she will be here talking with our very valued Natasha Hausdorff from UK LFI, and they will be discussing the new tactics of lawfare being wielded against Israel at the moment. So that's on the 1st of April. As someone has just put in the chat, that's on April Fool's Day, but it will be a very serious event. So we'll share details about that tomorrow with you as well. And that just brings me to offer my thanks to David Neifeld, to Rabbi David. Thank you very much for a very informative evening, and I hope you get the Pesach element of your work all sorted after Purim. And yes, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's joined us, and we wish you well and hope to see you with us soon. Okay, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.